Welcome back to the Trail Currents podcast. I'm Jamil Coury.
I'm Jubilee Paige.
And we've been gone for quite a while.
We have.
It was almost 4 months.
4 months.
we added it up, and it was embarrassing. But despite that, we overcame our embarrassment, and we're back.
Yes.
And we hope to be more regular. That's the plan. Where were we?
We've been traveling around a little bit.
You've been gone for over 6 weeks, I think, close to it, since
I think that's
the
about
end of June.
Yeah.
And it's now August 14th.
Yeah.
So you were mostly in Colorado?
In Colorado. Left at the beginning of July. Lived in Silverton for about a month, and then rolled around Utah for the last couple weeks.
You out there for the Tushers, and then just traveling. So we did have some viewers. They were asking for a follow-up because we did do an episode on running your first 100-miler.
Yeah.
So we have to ask, because you were signed up for the Ute 100, did that happen?
It did not for me.
So you did not start?
I did not start.
Okay.
I think I'm actually officially like DNS, and I'll just sign up.
Oh, you didn't even like remove yourself?
I emailed like probably way too late. Like, hey guys, I'm not going to be there. Yeah.
They had a pretty high DNS rate. I think
that's what Noah said.
There was only 97 that started.
Yeah.
I think he originally had 170
yeah.
entrants. So
yeah.
But I think that's kind of what happens when you open registration so soon. I think he even closed it pretty quick. Like, it was open, I think, a year ago.
I want to say, like, when I registered, I was like, oh, I have about a year to train and get ready and kind of, get myself
So you just didn't feel like you were ready to do it this year?
I had no business on that trail. There was no way that I was going to start and finish that race. I could have started the race, but, I mean, given the difficulty and then, some of the race reports that came back, I think I made the right decision because I am not ready for a mountain 100 like that.
You still have aspirations of the distance?
For sure. Absolutely. Yeah. And, I was probably adequately trained for a 50 mile I could probably slug out 100K with what I have now, but I'm not there yet. So I didn't want to, I guess I didn't want to like chase cutoffs and really kind of disappoint myself at my first 100, especially if something that like epic and beautiful. And I did stay in Moab. That was extremely hot.
It sounds hot this time of year.
Oh my gosh. But yeah.
So we'll touch base about that again. We might do another episode, maybe when you pick a new race and kind of go revisit that, because I think a lot of people enjoyed that episode.
I definitely want to, I think, just probably jump into a 50-mile 100K, maybe make that jump a little bit not so...
sometimes you get excited
so severe,
and you go on Ultra Sign Up and you get yourself into a little bit of a mess. But anyways,
sure we've all done it. Yeah.
We're going to switch gears and kind of move on with this episode. So if you're tuning in for the first time, welcome to the Trail Currents podcast. And this is the show. It takes a deep dive into topics making waves in the running world. So we've got another interesting topic this week. A lot of times we try and tackle some controversial issues and always in a relaxed setting. We're drinking a couple beers that a runner gave to us from Tushers. She ran the race and dropped these by the office. So thank you, Lisa Moore. And it's just an opportunity. It's a conversation. We don't know everything. We don't pretend to, but it's a chance to hear a little bit of insight from a couple of us we're race directors and we're in the sport, and we like to talk about interesting things.
Yeah.
And this week, before we get to our topic, we actually would like to thank this week's sponsor.
Yes.
We are really excited to have back as a sponsor of the show, Splat Sunscreen. They're one of our biggest supporters of the podcast, and we had them on board back in March for the launch of their Kickstarter. This is a new company. It's a new product, and it's a sunscreen, obviously, Splat Sunscreen. And we just have to shout out to our listeners and viewers because you guys came out in force to support their Kickstarter. They
That's
were able
awesome.
to track everyone who clicked through from our show, and they said we were one of their most successful campaigns. So
Cool.
I guess you guys trust us.
You guys showed up. That's amazing.
But we both supported the campaign, and there's product now. This
Yeah.
is it. If you are listening in, go check out splatsunscreen.com. But if you're watching,
It's in hand, man.
we have it in hand. We've
Yeah.
got a couple of their 10 packs here. These come in 3-ounce packets. And where did mine go? I guess I put mine away.
I don't know.
But we had them out here. I love their color combo.
Oh, heck yeah.
So bright and so fun. And they come in these portable packs. So these are brand new. And
I mean, it's perfect because it's about the size of a goo, and you can stick it in your pack,
Yeah.
or you can put multiple packs in if you're on a long run and you need to apply.
thinner than a goo.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
it's
Oh,
about
totally.
the same footprint, but
Yeah.
it's probably a quarter as thin as a normal
Yeah.
goo pack.
Yeah.
So it's really convenient. And that's something that I mean, there might be a portable pouch of sunscreen, but I haven't seen it.
I mean, I think there's like tubes and things like
Yeah,
that, but I don't
nothing
think
that's convenient.
It's not lightweight. It's not. Yeah, this is going to be really, really easy.
Especially for the reapplication. I think that's
Exactly.
the biggest thing.
And that's
I mean,
the whole point.
I've been waiting for this all summer.
Yes.
And it's like, I've been frying out there. I really could have used this.
We're through the summer, man. This is perfect.
But it's still, yeah, it's important to protect your skin. And they've put a lot of thought into this. We were actually asking them, we didn't get the answer quite on this show, but fortunately they are sponsoring us again for the next
Yeah.
episode. So we will talk about it again. It's SPF 29. And we were going to find out maybe a little bit about the reasoning. So stay tuned next time. We'll talk about that more.
I want to know about the 1 SPF.
Oh, why is it 29 not 30?
Why is it 29 and not
it
30?
might just be
I like that it's
it
a
might be
funky, like,
unique.
odd number. Yeah.
It's memorable that way.
Yeah.
So we wanted to actually open this up for the first time and use a packet. So
You want to see? You want to see how
see if we can
far
like
we
get
can?
the sound of it.
Oh, I am not good at this already.
Okay.
It's fine.
I mean, it smells a lot like sunscreen.
Wait, I'm gonna.
Oh, yeah,
There's quite a bit of sunscreen.
yeah, there's
in
more
this
than I
little pack.
thought in here. So we're gonna apply it now and see how far it goes. Okay.
Go on. I actually.
This is a lot.
This is a lot.
That's really good though, because
That's the thing. Like, if you're out on a long run and you're in it for, several hours, you might not always remember, like, at an aid station, but, like, if you're in Arizona and you're under the sun, you're going to feel it. So it's kind of perfect.
My bed's gonna smell like sunscreen now tonight. So I've got it on my entire face and neck and arms.
Ooh.
And I feel like there's still a lot in here. I'm gonna do my legs next. So basically trying to cover all of the normally exposed areas.
Yeah.
And
I probably now have too much on my hands because now I'm wearing long pants and I don't have. Ooh, my feet. I can do my feet.
Okay. So yeah, I've got it pretty much. I bet there's enough. Like if I was going shirtless, I could probably cover my entire chest and stomach and back, face, arms, legs. It's almost full body coverage in one pouch.
It's full body coverage in a tiny, tiny pouch, guys.
Okay, I can't get my ears, but now our computers are going to be totally covered in this. But at least it smells like the beach.
It's really nice.
So I still have the whole bottom of this pouch is still full. I have enough to probably cover. I could cover my stomach and stuff definitely. Yeah. So okay, so we wanted to do that.
Nice product test.
That was our first.
Definitely gonna.
It's actually our first time opening the product, so.
It smells nice in here.
It's
now.
like the beach. Yeah. it's great. So I guess that's about it. Support Splat sunscreen. It is made in Salt Lake City. Yeah. It's packaged in Colorado, and the whole company is run by just two guys, Quinn and Mark. You can talk to them on Instagram. They're really responsive, and it's ready to ship immediately. So if you have some 100-milers coming up, some fall races, do yourself a favor, treat your skin right, pick up some Splat sunscreen over at splatsunscreen.com. And it looks like, speaking of Instagram, they are typing a message back to me as we speak on why SPF 29. So hopefully we'll get that answer here within the
Sweet.
next few seconds.
Right on.
And I do want to wrap up this plug, but again, I guess if anyone else out there is interested in sponsoring this podcast, we do have some openings coming up. I think our next 2 episodes are already taken, and we are going to be more consistent, probably putting out a show probably every week for the foreseeable future. I'd like to.
Hopefully, yeah.
We're both back in
We're
town.
back together, Jam. Oh.
Jam and Jubes. Back.
You got a little sunscreen right there.
Yeah,
Right,
I probably do.
Right on the tip of the nose. There
Yeah.
you go.
We're not going to be able to put this to the test because the sun just went down out here. So
You can never be too prepared.
I'm going to be ready to go in the morning when I wake up here. So stay tuned for the end of the show when we will provide the answer
There
on
it is.
SPF 29 because they're still typing, and we're going to move on to the show right now. So this week's show, the topic is DQs and race regulations. That sounds like the most boring topic imaginable when I just said it out loud, but I assure you it will be interesting.
It was a heated topic about a month ago, man.
Yeah, so this all initiated from the Hardrock 100 this year. I'm sure most of you know about this.
Yeah.
And this is it's a hot button topic. So I don't know, should we do some disclaimers? Like, I feel like everyone gets very passionate about this. And this basically divided the world.
Yeah, everybody definitely put in their 2 cents. Like Twitter blew up after this incident.
It was just in Facebook too, which I think is some of the worst, honestly. Like when people go on Facebook and start debating, it can become nasty.
Everybody's going to have a minute.
We're on there, we're just typing away, and we're not sometimes remembering that these are other people we're talking to. But there was a lot of impassioned people because
definitely
Xavier is he's very popular in Europe. He's from France. He doesn't speak English. That's apparent from his I Run Far interviews with Hardrock, and I think he has like a way bigger following than Hardrock, which is interesting. Yeah. So let's recap for the listeners and the viewers that don't know what happened and why we're talking about this topic. And hopefully you find it interesting. We find it fascinating as race directors.
For sure.
And just, I think, fans of Hardrock and loving those mountains. So that's why we want to talk about this.
Totally.
So Xavier Thevenard, probably butchering his name a bit, and I apologize. He was heading out of the Ouray aid station in the lead at Hardrock this year. It's his second time running the race. Yep. He got third. He placed third back in 2016, so he's not new to this event. And he was heading up out of Ouray, and a friend of ours, Tony Russ, was out spectating, and he's a fan. Just gonna pop a couple photos. He went down on course. They don't have rules against spectators, I think, being out on the trail.
Not that I know.
That section was open that he was on. The area above was closed. Mm-hmm. So he's just out there, hikes down the trail, is taking a couple photos, and he comes back up with his dog, and he sees Xavier go over to a vehicle. So Xavier was with his pacer. He just picked him up, and he was about 2.5 miles up out of Ouray. You cross a road there, and it's actually a very popular spot for spectators because you just saw your runner in Ouray, and you're on your way to Grouse, and you can stop by the tunnel. There's a pullout, and it's a good spot to take a couple photos, send them off, give them an encouragement, and keep going. And there's nothing in the rules that prohibits you from stopping there as a spectator.
Right.
There is a rule that says you cannot crew outside of an aid station.
Right.
Of a specific aid stations.
Correct.
Like some you can, some you can't. And there were some other specific spots on the course. And correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that this was okay to stop at least. Over by Chapman, you're not allowed to stop on the road even and cheer or let anyone out or park. But this wasn't, I don't believe this was a prohibited area, like you can't even spectate.
No, I mean, as far as I know, I think spectators are allowed on course.
So apparently, Tony took some photos.
Sure.
Once he saw it, because it made him feel uncomfortable. Xavier was over there with his crew for a couple minutes. He was underneath the hatchback of the car and supposedly taking a sip of sparkling water. getting some ice supposedly, and Tony snapped a couple photos, and Xavier like kissed his girlfriend or something, and was off, and he had quite a bit of a lead at this point. I think it was more than 30 minutes, it was 45 minutes, considerable lead. He stopped. He did get some aid, like water and ice, which is considered aid in the U.S.
Yeah.
Maybe they had a different definition in Europe. I don't know. I don't know if he's just saying that, but that's one of their arguments. So anyways, Tony, he comes back to Ouray. I happened to be there. I was waiting to pace a runner, and I think I had mentioned something about I had some sort of story for Outhouse the next week for the news show that I put on. I forget what it was. I was like, oh, I think it was that Gordon Hardman got into the race or something, because there was 146 runners that started Hardrock, and there's only 145 spots. I was like, well, that's weird. We should talk about that. And he's like, oh, I got something juicier for you. And then he showed me the photos, and he was like, what should I do? I was like, well, you should probably tell Dale, he would probably like to know that, like, it looks like he's violating one of the rules, like getting aid. I didn't know the scenario or this whole situation, but I just encouraged him to go talk to Dale. I think as a race director, I'd want to know, and I didn't know what they would do. I didn't know. I just figured, well, maybe they can like tell him to stop, like not do that again, at least be like, hey, give him a warning. Because that's not fair.
Yeah, it's in the rules. Yeah,
it's in the rules. It's a fair enough thing. So I encouraged him, and he went and talked to Dale, and then that kind of started a chain of events where, and I do have to, you got to give some credit to Hardrock. I mean, that's a tough call. Like, there's a rules violation.
Yeah,
there's
for any organization.
Photographic evidence.
Yeah.
It doesn't look good. Like him hunched underneath the crew vehicle. Like, no matter how you spin that, it doesn't look good.
Right.
Doesn't matter if you're the leader or the last place guy. Like, you're by your crew vehicle, and they're like touching your pack, and
you're not in a crew allowed area. Yeah.
Like, and that I think is a decent violation. What he ended up getting at the end of the day, like, it's arguable that it might have been an accidental thing where he just wanted to say hi to him, and he's excited because he's winning the race. You could see his perspective. Like, he sees his girlfriend, he's feeling great, he's dominating the event. He gets a little bit of ice. I doubt he was even out of water, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, he just left that aid station.
I mean, it was definitely the hottest part of the day.
Yeah.
So there has been some arguments on that. But with the commanding lead he had, I mean, you can also get water from streams. Like, if all he got was ice and water, it's kind of to me, it's like a minimal offense of the rule break. It's still breaking the rule.
Right.
But the advantage he actually gained from that was probably fairly negligible at the end of the day. I don't think he got a major advantage that helped him extend his lead to 3 hours at one point.
Right.
Like, even without that, he still would have dominated the field and won the race.
Yeah.
But by the time Hardrock was able to even find out about this, he was already well on his way to Grouse. 15 miles later, by the time Tony even reported it, then they have to try it's not easy to get around the Hardrock course. You have, there's huge mountains. There's not easy ways to drive.
There's a lot of driving.
So
there's hours in between each one as crew.
For Dale or someone involved with the race to actually get to him or get to his crew, that took them hours and many miles. So they ended up touching base with his crew at Sherman. They got a little bit of a report from them, and it potentially changed a little bit what they said. And long story short, Dale Garland, the race director, ended up, they ultimately went to Cunningham at mile 91 to face-to-face meet with him and get another story from him on what happened. And his story may have changed a bit. He kind of admitted to taking the aid. And at that point, that was enough for the Hardrock Rules Committee and Dale and all them to decide that he would be disqualified because he broke the rule. And they did give him the option to continue and finish the race. unofficially, but he decided to just stop his run there.
Yeah.
And that kind of disappoints me, but I can also understand it.
I mean, you're in the lead. You know that you're going to win the race, but it's not going to count. So.
It's not going to count, but it still would have been cool to see him finish. To be like, well, fine, it's a run. It's a run anyway. And
I'm going to complete the course.
I'm going to complete it because I love the race. But also, if you're DQ'd,
I can see how heart-wrenching that is because, I mean,
and your emotions in the moment.
Of course, you've run more than 80 miles of a really hard course, and like a little tiny mistake completely interrupted your day and your race and cost you the win. That sucks.
So this set off a bit of a firestorm because he didn't take it lightly, to say the least. He kind of issued his own statement that he disagreed. He thought it was way too harsh, that in Europe, a lot of times if you break a rule, it's just a time penalty.
Right.
And Hardrock they don't really have time penalties set up in their rules. They never had to do this before.
Yeah.
They never had to DQ a runner, I'm pretty sure. So
no, they've never dealt with this issue ever before.
And so they had to kind of react, and they did have to kind of make up some stuff as they went, but they convened their race management, and that's ultimately the decision they came to. I mean, I can understand from a race director perspective why we have these types of rules, because honestly, for your permits, a lot of times you only allow crewing in certain areas because it's dangerous. It's an impact on the communities that you're hosting your event in. For our Black Canyon race, we've had to restrict crews more and more. And I absolutely would DQ someone for taking support outside because that's in violation of our permit.
Yep.
And it puts the race in jeopardy.
For sure.
It really does. And that's something to think about in all of this, is that, you know, an infraction like that, maybe it wouldn't have affected the outcome of the race, but there is some integrity to it for sure. Like we want to.
There are reasons that rules are in place.
I mean, we want to all compete on a fair playing field, and that's why we have certain athletic rules. This is an athletic sport, and for, you know, a win to mean something, it's got to be a level playing field, just like rules against doping and course cutting and all these other things. Like it's got to be fair.
Yeah.
It's got to be a fair fight, and that's why it's a sport, because we play by rules, and they've got to be enforced too. Right. Otherwise, why do we have them? So I think they erred on the side of, we're going to enforce this rule because it's a clear violation, even though maybe it would have been nice to have that time penalty option.
I mean, certainly, like, I understand people's, point of view where the severity of the punishment may have not really balanced with the crime, so to speak. I can
totally see that.
You know, and I mean, that was his point of view the whole time, where it was like, you know, it was just a sip of water, and I didn't think it was a big deal. But he's not a first timer here. No,
you know, and
he knows the rules, and
that's the other thing. Like he can disagree, but also, you know, it shows. I think it would have shown a little more class to maybe still finish and still just kind of accept it and be like, yeah, I mean, I screwed up.
I mean, he did admit that, that I broke the rule here. And
so it's a really tough thing, because I know,
you know,
he's a professional athlete, and this was his big goal race for the year.
For sure.
And he was crushing it. And it's impressive to see someone do that in those mountains, because I know it's not easy. I've been there.
It can't be easy.
And to walk away, to come from all the way from Europe to leave empty-handed, it's heartbreaking for sure.
Yeah.
And for something that for him was maybe seen as an inadvertent thing that happened. Yeah. And that's kind of, I guess, the tragedy of all this. It kind of is a tragedy where Hardrock couldn't not do anything. They didn't really have a method to enact something partial. And maybe that'll change now.
Right.
Maybe they will put some verbiage for next year.
That's what I was going to ask. Like, is this going to set a precedence where any kind of outside aid whatsoever, is that a qualification? Like, is that going to qualify for a DQ, or, you know, are they going to have like levels of punishment?
I think for me, it's opened up a lot of questions for our races.
Yeah.
And I want to talk a little bit about that, but I think for Hardrock too, they have to decide what they want to be.
Sure.
Because at the end of the day, there's a few kind of hypocritical things that I see. And I know I'm critical of Hard Rock sometimes, and I'm sure they are going to be listening to this, and probably they might respond, and I'll welcome that. We've heard from Blake Wood before about talking about the lottery, and we've heard from Dale, and I love it. I want to have a conversation. We're not trying to be too critical, but
like the more information that we have and like the different perspectives that we gain from,
I think it just helps
everybody who
the
puts
sport.
it in. Yeah.
This is a case study. We now have this. There's a lot of European races that they just have prescribed penalties because they've been doing mountain running for a long time, and they have infractions and they have different things. They can do a 30-minute time penalty. They can do a 1-hour time penalty, and that could really hurt you in a race.
Is it like time penalties? Is that at the discretion of the race director or the organization?
It can be, yeah. And I think a little discretion is fine. Sure. I think having a little bit of gray area where like it's almost like a referee or an official in a game, but in like football or like a yellow card in soccer, like they have a warning and they have a couple things, and that could be based upon the severity of the infraction.
Sure.
So like, and even the circumstances of the aid. I mean, now I think people are going to be a lot more careful at Hard Rock with any sort of. They don't want anyone to think anything.
I mean, I think even like beyond Hard Rock, probably other races too. Yeah,
definitely. But I think at Hard Rock especially, it's like you're going to tell your crew, don't even stop at the tunnel. I don't even want anyone to.
I don't want to see you. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to see you. Don't risk it. I don't want to get pulled from this race.
Right.
But at the end of the day, or at the beginning of the day, Hard Rock calls itself a run, not a race, and they say that specifically, and it's all about paying tribute to the miners and being out in the mountains and
less competitive,
but yet they still recognize winners of the run.
Right.
That's not a race. They still record times. So it is kind of a race, although it's a run at its heart. And how much of the rules, like how hardline do they need to be on certain rules where it's more like, well, this is a competitive rule versus just it's a run in the mountains, and that's the focus. That's an interesting question to see what they do with that. It'll be interesting to see because also technically, if you get anything from your pacer,
that's considered
muling and outside aid.
Yeah.
So if you get a gel from your pacer and you're 4 miles out on the trail, to me, that could be even more beneficial than the little bit of water that Xavier got. And how many runners are guilty of that? Yeah. I'm really curious. And if they're going to DQ Xavier for this, why aren't they DQing all of these runners that get aid from their pacers? To me, it seems like...
I mean, is it one of those things that's less reported, or is it like...
I think it's very hard to enforce that.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, it would have to be almost self-reported. Like, and I have an instance of this that I brought up. Someone else actually pointed it out, and I had forgotten about it. But I took a swig of beer from Dominic Grossman in 2015.
Yeah.
It was 2 miles from the finish. He was with my crew, so technically probably considered part of my crew.
Yeah.
He hands me a beer as I was crossing the river. It's in my race video.
Yeah.
There's photos of it.
Yeah.
It's like you can't deny it. And I took outside aid.
I mean, do you consider that outside aid? Is that like a celebration after your run? Is like where's the line drawn? Is that going to benefit really your race?
I didn't dip from the stream, but it was still outside aid of my crew, not at a crew area, and I don't see much of a difference in that. I don't know if it matters what the purpose was.
Yeah.
Maybe his crew just met him there and he just took a swig of water, didn't think, he's like, well, this isn't really aid. I'm not suffering here. I'm not injured and like needing aid, like someone to physically help me along. And maybe that was what he thought.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm saying he's too naive. I don't know.
Yeah.
And I actually did email Dale about this. I was like, hey, I want you to know I took aid outside an aid station. And he replied back, in essence, saying like, well, it's past the time. Like it was like 3 years ago, so we're gonna let that slide.
Okay.
But who knows? Like what if I don't know. What if they do meet you, the race winner, with a beer? What if Xavier was met with 2 miles to go and they hand him a beer and someone's videoing it? Hey, he's getting a beer. What the heck?
Well, I mean, it's not unheard of where I've heard, guys putting a beer a mile out from their 100-mile finish.
You're not allowed to stash
and that's
supplies.
Like stashing.
You're not allowed to stash supplies. So that's breaking the rule too. And I guess I don't think that I don't necessarily think that Hard Rock should crucify runners for taking a gel from a pacer if they're really down.
Right.
But they kind of drew a line in the sand. They didn't say, okay, you violated the crew rule, but it was kind of negligible aid, so we are going to give you a 1-hour time penalty.
Yeah.
Because then it would be like, well, they're kind of like, well, we don't really care if like a runner takes a gel from a pacer or a salt caplet or something.
Yeah.
I mean, if they're like carrying their pack, that's more of a material violation.
Right.
And probably would want to do more with that. But I guess we'll just have to see what Hard Rock does.
Yeah,
like,
where is that line really going to be drawn?
And the other point I want to bring up too that a lot of people brought up was in like the Hard Rock rules, like their main page of their runner manual.
Okay.
Like the number 1 rule is no whining. And rule 5, I think, was the one that says no crew outside of aid stations. And rule 8 was you must enjoy yourself. Yeah. So it's like,
what are rules?
So if you whine, will you be disqualified?
Right.
If you are not enjoying yourself, will you be disqualified? So it kind of begs the question, because that rule was, granted, it was in the same list.
Right.
But what are the penalties for whining?
What are these rules? Yeah.
Or like how much of a whine will get you disqualified?
Right.
Is it like really blatant yelling at a volunteer? Well, yeah.
Sure.
But if you're just kind of complaining that this is hard and you're like...
Which I can't imagine at any point, like, there's probably 100% of the Hard Rock finishers at some point during their race.
You might whine. At some point, you probably are not enjoying yourself.
Right.
So are you all... Like, what happens to you?
Right.
And I know... And I do... We do kind of joke about that, but they do, I will point out later, say, if you have a crew outside a crew aid station, you may be disqualified. So they were very specific that could happen to you.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it kind of does beg the question of, for other races, okay, we have a lot of rules at the Mogollon Monster and the Javelin 100, and well, what happens if you violate them? Do we have a mechanism for giving out time penalties? I don't think we currently mention anything about that with Aravaipa.
Currently, no.
But I would like to have that option.
Right.
Because sometimes you got to enforce your rules, but maybe it doesn't warrant a full DQ all the time.
But like, where then does it end? Where if you have 20 runners, Fox. Sorry. No. If you have 20 runners all like coming forward or like saying, hey, I took a goo or a beer or whatever from my pacer, give me a 10-minute penalty or whatever. Like,
it just
does it start to get kind of out of hand? Is it too much? Like, is it a little bit convoluted? Like with all of the rules and all of the...
Well, that's why you have to ask what rules are the most important and which ones can we enforce, you know? Like, do we really care in this sport if pacers hand their runner stuff? Because I guarantee it happens all the time.
Yeah.
There's a lot of races that say no muling and no outside aid, but they're in the middle of the night when you got your pacer at 2 a.m. and they have the caffeine pill in their pack and you don't.
Right.
How many people are going to have are
going to stick to the rule? Or the Advil or the whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I've been guilty. I mean, I've taken painkillers I took a painkiller from another runner's pacer at Angeles Crest the first year I ran it. Granted, I don't use painkillers anymore, but except beer maybe.
I mean, beer's a good one.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't have all the answers. I would love to hear what all of you think out there.
Absolutely.
And at what point do all the rules take away from the sport? Like we all want to have, I think we all want to have, this is a sport. It's not an obstacle race. No, it's not an untimed mud run. All of us are, I think, this is a pure athletic sport, in my opinion. We're running through the mountains, we're setting personal bests, we're trying to push ourselves and challenge ourselves. and competing against others. I think a lot of us do like the competition. We're not all in it for that, but anyone who signs up for a race is looking for something.
Yeah.
Because you could just go out and do this all on your own. You don't have to do it with anyone.
Oh, for sure.
And maybe you're doing it just for the camaraderie.
I was going to say, but there's the camaraderie and there's the support. Yeah.
I think a lot of us, we like to see what we can do. And
for sure. And
I think when the guy next to you is, going outside the rules and stashing stuff in the forest, and you're like, hey, that was a 14-mile section with no aid. I had to put extra stuff in my pack, and you're off over here grabbing, munchies out of the forest. Like that's just, it kind of, I think, does defeat the purity of the sport when there's not at least a level playing field. But at what point does it kind of take away from, hey, we're supposed to enjoy ourselves too? And do we want to be so paranoid that, oh my God, I really could use like some chips that my pacer has in their pack. Like I didn't pack them, but they did. And it's negligible that, like, granted, I have all my own food. I've been packing my nutrition, but man, I just really want this salt pill that I forgot, or that
like
battery.
Sometimes you can't anticipate everything that you're going to want on the trail. Like I have all sweets in my pack. And it's like, I really just want something salty. And I know that this person has pretzels and maybe I just want
so
one.
I think, I don't know that we want to be DQing 20% of the field, because I have like I don't even know, a wildlife camera out there or something, or someone watching.
Right.
Who knows? For every time.
Or just like for fear of like, oh crap, was that Spectator? Is that person going to tell on me for X amount of whatever? Yeah. Like, oh, I've got to.
You're not even allowed to like kiss your spouse at
right.
This
I've got to
spot.
mind my P's and Q's and everything that I do, and stress out even more. Besides just running 100 miles, like there's all these other things that then you have to focus on, and it takes probably it does
exactly. So I think it'll be interesting to see kind of what Hardrock does here, and I think we're gonna have a discussion probably with Aravipa, all of our race directors, and get some opinions. And I'd love to hear what all of you viewers and listeners think as we formulate. And I guarantee you, most races out there right now are having similar conversations.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I think they
don't want to be caught in this kind of PR nightmare, or in the middle of something.
Regardless, it's a hard decision to make. It is.
Absolutely.
For the race director and everybody behind in the race organization. No one wants to make that call. That's heartbreaking. You don't want to end somebody's race over anything really. And, but I'm sure that decision and everything behind it is going to definitely have a ripple effect within the race community.
Hardrock's an important race, and it's high profile. So what they do, a lot of people are going to look at and kind of decide what they're going to do.
For sure.
So next I want to touch on the Angeles Crest 100, because they are kind of the first race that I've seen that did do something in response to Hardrock. So what they did was they communicated to, and I'm actually trying to pull it up. I apologize real quick. You got the yawns there, huh?
I know. It's been a day.
Okay, I got to try and pull this up. I think it was this episode. So someone sent this to me. This was communicated to all of the AC 100 entrants the race week. And it says 2018 AC 100 runners. Due to recent events at Hardrock, the AC 100 race organization has decided that all runners need to be completely aware of all rules and agree to them prior to the race, which I think is great. Being proactive and kind of reminding everybody these are the most important things to the race. And these are things that could get you disqualified. And some of theirs have to do with their specific circumstances. Their race crisscrosses Highway 2 along the Angeles National Forest. I've run the race 3 times, and it's part of their permit. That's what they say. They went pretty far. Like, I don't know if I would do this, but they made each runner sign an agreement. They had to sign it, and they had to initial 5 times next to 5 different rules that if they break will result in a DQ. And then they have an additional solo runners category where you have no pacer, no crew, and you have to sign another agreement with 5 additional initials. It's almost like when you sign a home loan, like a mortgage, and you're like, or closing on a house, and you're like signing initial here, initial here, initial here, initial here. So let's look at specifically the spectator and traffic rules. So they promise you have to like type your name, or like print your name. I blank promise to follow the AC 100 traffic policy. It says all runners and crews have the responsibility to ensure that the minimal amount of cars are present on the course for safety and permitting issues. If a traffic accident occurred or something is unsafe, the race could be canceled immediately and not receive future permits. So it's apparently very serious. Spectators without crew passes are not allowed in aid stations. If a runner has more friends than seatbelts in their car, it's recommended they become volunteers. That's great. So basically, then you have to initial each rule. So these are the 5 rules. Disqualification. Spectators associated with a runner parking near an aid station. So that's weird. It's not even a crew. If it's a spectator, so if you had like a friend that's spectating your race, they park near an aid station without a crew pass, you get DQ'd. I don't know how they figure this out.
I was going to say, how do they know who is spectating who? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, do they go knock on the window and say, like, who are you for? Like, who are you rooting for?
Spectators driving slowly below 25 miles per hour on Highway 2 talking to runners on the road. And interesting, again, I'm going to let this out of the bag.
Yeah.
And I wasn't going to talk about it, but this is what we do on this show. There was a certain, I'm not going to name names, but there's a certain, I saw someone on Twitter post a video driving slowly along Highway 2 while a runner was running along Highway 2 talking to them, like cheering them on.
And it doesn't have to be a specific runner. It can be any runner.
But I guess whoever you're spectating, whoever you're talking to is the one that could be DQ'd. So literally spectators driving slowly, talking to runners. That happened. It was posted on Twitter as a video. And I don't know if there was DQ.
Right.
But that was like the runner had to sign this and additionally initial it. And they broke it.
But then as a runner, like...
Okay, well, no, they say here.
Okay.
It'll get to that.
Okay.
Because you have an out as a runner.
Right.
So the next one is crews or spectators parking without an adventure pass. Spectators running with runners down the trail other than the final mile. So if I guess there's anyone out there, so like if Tony came along and's like trying to take a picture of you or cheer you on, you have to be like, don't, stop. Crews or spectators parking over the white line. I do like that because that's a safety issue for the traffic. Like, that's bad. We've had that happen at Javelina, and it upset me.
Yes.
Because it's like this giant truck. It's like back bumpers like hanging out over the main park road, and you're like, I want to tow this vehicle out of here.
Absolutely.
I wish I could DQ someone for that.
Yeah.
That would be nice. So watch out, Javelina runners. You guys are going to have to sign an initial that say, if your truck bumper is over the white line, you're out.
You're out.
So it says, I as a runner will tell spectators. You have to literally, like if someone is, you have to tell anyone who's spectating for you, this is like verbatim what you have to say. And I guess you have to say this to someone who's, like if they're driving slowly, you have to like yell at them and be like, stop talking to me. Like, go on, you're going to get me DQ'd. You have to say, do not park near aid stations. Do not drive slowly next to me on the road. Do not hold up traffic. Do not run with me on the course. Do not litter. I will be disqualified if you do any of these things. Sign up to volunteer at an aid station on ac100.com if you want to help me. Like, they give you this canned line, and it's great. It's fantastic. And then you have to tell your crew, do not crew me without an adventure pass and crew pass. Do not drive slowly next to me on the road. Do not park over the white line. Do not hold up traffic. Do not litter. I will be disqualified if you do any of these things.
It's like, please raise your right hand.
It's like an oath.
Absolutely. It sounds like an oath.
I'm curious, like, if anyone did anyone get DQ'd? I don't know. We're not sure. But I thought that was very interesting.
There's some pretty detailed.
And then they have an agreement for
rules,
solo runners as well. You have to agree that you can't have any pacers or crew or aid from anything else. You may receive emotional encouragement from crews in the aid station, but I guess you can't have your own crew. So you can receive a hug, a high five, and a cheer from other people's crews.
Okay. A hug, a high five, and a cheer.
So That's cool. But that's cool. Like, so if Xavier like went up to the car and like kissed his girlfriend, that's probably
okay.
Fine.
Yeah.
But as soon as he took the swig of the sparkly water, it's like the bad egg. He flushed down the tube. I was thinking of Willy Wonka.
I was going to say, is that a Willy Wonka?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know why.
The bad egg.
I think I was humming Oompa Loompa song earlier today for some reason.
That's cute.
So that was something about the AC100. They, in response, created that. The other thing I wanted to talk about AC real quick, because I thought it was also an interesting thing with the regulations and the rules that I thought was interesting, is that, did you hear about this with Darcy, the race winner? Darcy PQ?
She switched to the solo division.
Right. So if you don't know how their lottery works,
right.
or did in the past, they have solo runners and normal runners. I think they have the solo category because they want to reduce the number of crews on the highway, like we just heard.
Yeah.
So they give them some preferential treatment in the lottery, though.
Yeah.
So if you sign up as a solo, you have a better chance of getting in the race. And they're very specific in the solo division rules. You cannot switch to the crewed race at all. Like,
right. Once you start your race.
Specifically, it says the solo runner has received special consideration for entry through the lottery. So once a solo designation is accepted, a runner may not switch to being a crewed runner. This includes prior to the race day, at race check-in, and during the race. To repeat, you cannot switch from solo to crewed during the race. It could have just said you cannot switch from solo to crewed, period. Because that is also part of the rule.
Right.
But Darcy was given special consideration by Ken, the race director. And granted, he is the race director, so he can do whatever he wants, obviously. From what I heard, it may not have been clearly communicated at the time of the lottery that meant no crew. She, I believe, interpreted it as no pacer. So that's just
which she doesn't usually
heard.
Use a pacer.
Yeah, so she thought, okay, solo means no pacer, so I want to do that one. I get a better chance of getting in.
Sure.
But I still want a crew.
Got it.
And I think I believe she was not the only one from what I've heard. So let's not just throw Darcy under the bus. Let's not just throw the race director under the bus. I'm trying to give a balanced perspective because I don't know all the facts. But the facts we do know is that there were people that went against that stated rule for whatever reason.
Yeah.
But there's always gray areas in races. Like, we even have them from time to time. Yeah. So, I'm not trying to...
But it's specifically, like...
But it is interesting.
It does say in the solo division, no pacer, no crew.
I thought it was pretty clear just because this isn't the first year of it.
Right.
Like, to me, I'm like, solo, I know that means you got to do it on your own.
Right.
And no pacer, no crew. So I don't know how she didn't understand that. And I guess I would have been more inspired if they would have stuck to their rule on this one. Because especially when you're getting preferential treatment to bypass a lottery, and maybe it's like Dale's picks and Hardrock, and maybe they're like, well, this is just my pick.
Sure.
And they can do that. We don't know. We don't know how they do their lottery, and they could let other people in to make it more competitive. And she's a competitive runner. So that's just, I wanted to bring up that point though. It has to do with race regulations and rules and DQs and, and it's interesting just to see even seeing a violation of the rule that they had to sign and say, they went out of their way to make them all sign this thing, and yet it was broken and it was not enforced. Right. So why even do my point is, why even do all that?
I mean, it does seem like
that's it's a little bit much, maybe.
They put some thought into it, and there was definitely effort in making sure everybody knows, and there's no exceptions, except for there might be one exception, they seem
at the discretion very concerned about their rules,
right?
Very concerned about the disqualifications and making sure that's clear,
right?
They took time and effort and had to have pieces of paper for everyone to sign. But if you just go against that multiple in a couple different ways, it kind of baffles me a little bit. Well,
it's going to set a precedent, because then if you DQ somebody for that later on, then they're going to go back and say, but you didn't for this person, or you made an exception for this person. What's the difference?
So what I would just like to see, let's let's have enough rules in the sport
Right.
to make it fair and enforceable across the board. And let's eliminate the unnecessary rules that take away from the sport. I think that's what I would like to keep in mind when maybe we're looking ahead for our events.
Yeah.
That to me makes sense. It's hard when you see kind of some of this stuff that is like, well, you went out of your way to make all these extra initials and signatures. And like the other thing to question too is like, you know, like you're signing a contract with the race, because then it's like, well, is that like enforceable by law? Like, you could probably like sue them for the, like, gets weird.
Oh, wow.
Because you're signing a contract. So
Sure.
a contract has to be upheld. And if someone breaks the contract, then they probably have certain rights. Or like, do we even need that? Do we want like 8-page indemnifications and like,
just to run an ultra?
Where is this going to go?
I was going to say, where does this end here? Because,
yeah.
I mean, yeah, ultra running has come a long way in 20, 30 years. And
that's why I think ultimately it's an interesting topic and it's an interesting time, because I think we're starting to hit where races have realized, we got to have some rules.
We got to have some rules.
And it's kind of the sport's growing up a bit. But do we want to be as crazy as like triathlon or an Olympic sport where there's referees and putting you in the time box at every aid station has to have like a time penalty box, and you have to sit out your infractions? Like, do we want that?
I was going to say, is that where we're going? Do we want to, like these big, beautiful mountain races? Do you want to be concerned about every rule and regulation and line item 18B?
Like littering is a big one, like, it reminds me of Boy Scouts. Like, we had to earn our totemship card, like to safely use a knife. And if you misuse your knife and an adult leader catches you, they cut a corner off your card. So like, do you cut a corner off the bib? And if you get all 4 corners of your bib cut off, then you're DQ'd. That'd be kind of cool.
Oh, wow. It's a lot.
It's like your cruise over the white line. You snip a corner. You littered, snip a corner. You kissed your spouse, snip a corner. You're out.
And you're done.
I don't know. What else on that? Anything?
No, it's just a question of where do we go from here. But I'm sure it'll be a topic of conversation within our organization for sure. Yeah,
we're going to have fun debating this one, and it'll be interesting to see what else comes of it.
Yeah.
I know the eyes will be on higher profile races to see what they do.
Yeah.
I mean, Western states, they might be looking at their rules again. I mean, I think they do a pretty good job overall. And I got to commend Hardrock for doing what they could do in that limited time period. They wanted to get out ahead of it and make a decision. And I don't know if it needed to be done during the race. Maybe at that point, I almost wish maybe they let him finish and then decide. But maybe that also would have opened up some implications where it's like, well, we're going to DQ him anyways. Why even let him enjoy that and then have to take it away? That would be hard too, Yeah. So who knows? It's hard. And it's hard to know, like, what I would have done in the moment too when you have that, like, pressure. The pressure's on.
There is a tremendous amount of pressure if you're faced with that as a organization or a race director. And,
And I don't envy Dale and all of them.
By no means.
And I have to just commend them for showing professionalism and doing the best that they could do, trying to gather the facts. And ultimately, I mean, they decided to uphold their rules, which you can't be too upset at them for. I mean,
absolutely.
I think it's important. So, I don't know. Thank you, Hardrock. Thank you, AC, for doing what you guys do. I know it's not an easy job. It's a thankless job. You're open to all the criticism in the world, and you often don't get the praise that's due. Like AC 100 is an amazing race. So I know we're kind of maybe bringing you up here, but I just thank everyone who does stuff for the sport. I do want to make sure that's clear.
Yeah.
That we thank everyone for that, and we do understand. So where are we at?
I don't know.
Is that it?
Is that it?
Where are we at time-wise? 54.
Oh, that's good.
So,
yeah. That was a nice...
So thank you guys for joining us again for Trail Currents Podcast. We are back. The show's not dead. We took a break. We do want to hear from you. Please let us know your thoughts on this topic. I know there was a ton of comments. People were even blaming me for telling them to tell
I
Dale.
mean, there's always going to be like a scapegoat. You know, it's here. Everybody's going to have an opinion, but
yeah.
I mean...
But I feel good about my decision. I think it was the right thing.
Ultimately, we just want to make the sport.
Yeah. I was obviously feeling for Xavier. Like, that hurt me. Like, emotionally, it was hard to see that.
Yeah.
When, to me, it didn't seem like a crazy infraction. But also, there's a lot that went into it.
Yeah.
And if you want to read a full transcript of Dale's point of view and how it all went down, go to irunfar.com. Thank you to Megan Hicks she even interviewed me. Mine didn't make the cut, I guess. But they were just corroborating Tony's account. And I think they spoke with Xavier too.
They spoke with Xavier and Dale. So you get both point of views within that article.
So check that out on irunfar and go support them as well.
For sure.
Yeah, really appreciate that. Yes. And let us know what you think of the solo category too. That's like kind of I think that would be I think that'd be a great entire podcast.
Well, I mean, right now, like, is it AC that's they're the only, no.
It's kind of a growing trend.
Okay.
And I don't know how everyone feels about it.
It's a completely different division than the rest of the race. Correct?
I have my opinions on it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they get, a lot of times it's like, it says solo on your buckle and it's a different category. I don't know if they flat out give trophies to the winners of the solo. Mm-hmm. But I think that would be a great topic that we're gonna explore that more.
Deep dive a little bit more into that later.
The growing solo category.
Yeah.
And maybe just pacers and crews in general, like European versus American. That's all super interesting. So we're going to jump back and thank our sponsors again, Splat Sunscreen. We are all set for our runs tomorrow.
How does your skin feel? Because that absorbed really, really well into my skin.
It's nice.
It's really...
And I still have more left over.
Nice.
So
Really
we have, if you've been tuning in since the beginning, we have our answer. Why SPF 29 in Splat Sunscreen? So they say it's the perfect amount and the perfect SPF rating. And then they kind of laughed out loud. But they said, actually, it's because the team who made it basically didn't deliver on their request of 30 to 35 SPF. They have the option of spending more money on more SPF test subjects to bump it up because they take the average rating from different subjects. So maybe it sounds like there was some variance in the testing procedures.
Okay.
And it came in at 29. So I don't know how the science behind all that, but
if they say it's perfect, then that's good enough for me.
Yeah, I think it is. So there you go. That's the answer on that one. So be sure to check them out, splatsunscreen.com. We thank you for your continued support of this podcast. Please be sure to subscribe. You can catch this on YouTube. You can catch it on where most podcasts are found. Most of you guys are listening on Apple Podcasts. Mm-hmm. That's what our data is telling you. And you're tuning in from all over the world. So we thank you for that.
Awesome.
And where can you find us? You can find me at Jamil Coury on all the social medias.
Or at Happy Jubilee.
Yeah. So you guys can message us if you want, if you have questions or topics. We're excited to be back. And we'll see you and talk to you in the next episode. Thank you.
Right on.